In this new episode of Birmingham City Centre, Past and Present, entitled How to Destroy an 800-Year-Old Market Heritage, we will set our focus on Bradford Street and the surrounding area. This photo of Bradford Street was taken on the 25th of September 1968 by geography lecturer Phyllis Nicklin. On the left is the Drover's Arms, a popular market pub at the junction of Smithfield Street, which was demolished in February 1974. In the distance is the old city wholesale meat market and abattoirs. When Phyllis Nicklin took this photo, she already knew that the meat market was to meet a grisly fate. How did we get there, and why was the meat market and the surrounding buildings demolished? Well, to answer this question, let's take a step back into 19th century Birmingham. This is a photo of the old Circus Chapel, taken shortly before demolition. The Circus Chapel, formerly Ryan's Amphitheatre, was built as an equestrian circus in 1827 and was later converted into a chapel in 1848. The church was dissolved in 1890. For some years before it closed, the chapel was used as the meeting place for the Trades Council. The building was sold to Birmingham Corporation, who then demolished it to erect the city meat market and abattoirs on the site in 1895 at the total cost of £127,333. The city meat market and abattoirs in Bradford Street was opened on the 27th of October 1897, and the foundation stone was laid 2 years earlier. It replaced the St Martin's Meat Market erected in Jamaica Row in 1851 and closed as a wholesale market in 1897. The Bradford Street Meat Market, which extended to an area of around 17,000 square yards, ran through Sherlock Street east to Cheapside at the rear. It was built in red brick and yellow terracotta and designed in the Flemish Jacobean Renaissance style. The decision to build the Bradford Street Meat Market and abattoirs came on the 6th of January 1891, when the Markets and Fairs Committee secured the approval of the council to purchase some 12,000 square yards of land in Bradford Street and Cheapside. The original meat market in Jamaica Row and the slaughterhouses in Gloucester Street were increasingly inadequate and were badly situated to receive the stock from the Smithfield cattle market. Back in 1883, an attempt was made by the corporation to move the meat market and abattoirs away from the city to a site in Saltley near the railway, but the plan was rejected. On the 27th of October 1892, a pig and sheep market was opened in Montague Street to alleviate the Smithfield cattle market and extend the vegetable market. A new cattle market, replacing the one on the Smithfield site, was opened on the 24th of April 1900, next door to the pig market in Montague Street. Much of the cattle stock disposed of in Montague Street was slaughtered in the abattoirs in Bradford Street and afterwards distributed through the city meat market. The wholesale meat market was planned with care. It included 20 slaughterhouses for the wholesale trade, a small public slaughter hall for cattle, sheep and calves, and another slaughter hall for pigs. It also boasted a rear water tower decorated with extensive terracotta carvings. In the basement, a cold store and chill rooms provided 200,000 cubic feet freezing and chilling accommodation. At the time, few other municipal markets had a refrigeration facility. It induced many importing companies to establish large distribution centres in the Birmingham market. In 1965, individual slaughter halls were replaced by modern slaughtering lines capable of handling up to 60 beasts and 300 sheep an hour. As more traders established their own abattoirs in outside areas, the use of slaughtering facilities declined at the Bradford Street market, and after a decision not to replace them on economic grounds, this section of the trade ended on the 31st of December 1973. With the advent of cars at the end of World War II, traffic congestion became a real problem in the market area. In order to reduce congestion, the corporation tried in early 1958 to banish the meat market and abattoirs, as well as the fish market, to some remote site in Castle Bromwich. But the meat and fish traders opposed the scheme, and their will prevailed for a time. The markets were able to remain at the very heart of the city, where they were established in 1166 by Peter de Birmingham, within sight of St Martin's Parish Church. The Birmingham City Council would eventually exile its wholesale market to Witton 60 years later in 2018. By the early 1970s, age had corroded the meat market's brickwork, and the traffic congestion had rendered the setting archaic and unhygienic. You cannot move meat around in the diesel fumes. So the Birmingham City Council made the decision to take an aged but much beloved meat market to the slaughter to make way for a young and modern one. The new site covered 22 acres, compared with the 16 acres occupied by the existing city markets and surrounding streets from which many traders were forced out. Soon after midnight on Sunday 17th of February 1974, the lorries that used to bring food to the Midlands began to trundle up to the new meat, fish and poultry market to unload their produce. By 6 a.m, fishmongers and butchers were circulating among the freshly painted new halls to barter and pick up bargains. Completion of the first phase of Birmingham's new wholesale markets was delayed because of the 3-day week, a shortage of materials and heavy rainfalls. The new meat, poultry and fish complex had clean straight lines and wide surrounding roads. There, 50-foot lorries could manoeuvre with ease, backing up to the stalls of dealers. Where porters once humped huge crates of produce, hoists could be moved into position to shift the crates from the lorries to lifts inside the building. In the old building, the meat dealers had communal refrigeration facilities. In the new complex, they each had their own. Before, there were just 2 hot taps available for all the meat dealers. In the new complex, each firm had sinks and basins close to their upstairs offices. But there was a price for all this. Rents and rates were about 2.5 times higher for most dealers. Birmingham's meat market sold produce to about 250 butchers a day, with about £70,000 changing hands. By contrast, the new market as a whole handled about £79 million worth of produce a year, an amount far too large for the old building. The new meat, fish and poultry market was opened on Sunday, 17th of February 1974, and a few days later, bulldozers began to move in on the old edifice to make way for Phase 2 of the scheme, which was the building of a new fruit and vegetable complex. In May 1974, during demolition work, an 80-year-old glass bottle was found buried in the foundations of the meat market since 1895. It contained newspapers and documents sealed inside. Members of Birmingham Markets Committee wanted to open the bottle, but the city's conservation department warned that the newspapers would start to deteriorate as soon as the bottle was opened. Curiosity about its content proved too much for the Markets Committee, so they decided to open it anyway. Inside the bottle was a copy of the Times magazine dated 1895, other London newspapers, a copy of an unidentified Birmingham newspaper, and some unidentified documents. The demolition of the old meat markets didn't go unnoticed for Jenny Irving Smith, the 28-year-old keeper of studies at Birmingham Polytechnic at the time. Jenny, who was originally from Yorkshire, passed the market buildings on the bus each day, and one weekend she noticed that the demolition man's hammer was swinging in the direction of the 6 animals' heads on the side of the meat market. It was then, for the first time in her life, that Jenny decided to test local government democracy and asked the city council if the animal heads could be salvaged. She was told that there was no plans to do so, but they were prepared to do all they can to make sure the heads were saved. Jenny wanted to see the animal heads incorporated in the new market buildings. The finely worked heads of 2 rams, 2 bulls, a pig and a boar were part of the arched doors of the old meat market in Bradford Street. Architectural experts claimed that they were among the finest and earliest examples of terracotta carvings in Birmingham. Stone carving was one of Birmingham's fast disappearing architectural artefacts, and Jenny campaigned to save them. Did she manage to save the bull's head? We will find out before the end of this video. Bradford Street was originally called London Road, and up until 1883, a white stone with the road name carved into it could be seen at the old Birmingham Arms. About the same time, the old inn was demolished, and like everything old, the stone was destroyed. The new Birmingham Arms, shown in this photo, was built on the site of the old Birmingham Arms sometime between 1883 and 1886. The pub didn't even have time to reach 90 years old before it was served with a notice by the Birmingham Corporation. Indeed, on the 22nd of August 1969, the Birmingham Arms, as well as other premises located within the market area, were all served with a compulsory purchase order by the corporation, who wanted to clear out large acres of land to build a new and shiny market complex. Mr. Jack Sace of Adderley Road, Worley, ex-market worker and veteran of the Somme campaign during World War I, was a regular patron at the Birmingham Arms. In February 1970, he was interviewed by the Birmingham Evening Mail inside the pub to hear his thoughts about the decision from the Birmingham Corporation to demolish the Birmingham Arms, as well as 9 other pubs within the market area, to build the wholesale markets precinct. While wandering the musty stables behind the Birmingham Arms, Mr. Sace recalled with emotion. 60 horses a night from all over the Midlands used to be stabled at the rear, and in the morning the drovers would begin the return journey fortified with a 5:30 a.m. rum and coffee. A little bit of all of us would die when they knocked this place down. The stabling was accessed from Sherlock Street East, with an upper storey of stalls on 2 sides of the yard to which the horses were led up a steep ramp. The pub was used regularly by 3 vastly different groups: pop lovers at regular concerts, the Ancient Order of Druids, and the Shakespeare Reading Society, which used to meet there every Wednesday. The Birmingham Corporation acquired the Birmingham Arms by compulsory purchase in 1973, and by February 1974 the whole area was flattened to make way for progress. The Birmingham Corporation's idea of progress in the 1970s got bulldozed in 2018 by the Birmingham Council to make way for their own idea of progress, which is a sky-rise apartments complex to let that only the few can afford. When in 1974 the Birmingham City Council demolished 10 beloved market pubs of historical and architectural merit to make way for the £15 million wholesale markets precinct, they replaced them with a concrete pub built within the new complex. When it came to choosing a name for the pub, market traders came up with a suggestion like Horn and Hoof and Foot and Mouth. The Birmingham Corporation was in favour of a name that reflected the city's 800-year-old market's history, so they came up with the name Mercat Arms and Moat House. However, the Scottish and Newcastle Brewery Limited, the company who owned the pub, insisted that the Scottish origins has to be reflected in the name, so they came up with the Swinging Sporran, amongst other names. They eventually reached a compromise with the Mercat Cross. Mercat is the Scottish word for the little round building in the marketplace on which the old town crier stood. The Scottish and Newcastle Brewery Limited wanted to make the most out of the pub, so they decided to apply for a porridge with a pint licence. So in addition to normal opening hours, the brewery wanted the pub to be open from 7 am to 9 am to attract market traders who often start their shifts as early as 5 am. The Birmingham Licensing Committee gave the go-ahead for the Mercat Cross to be open to early morning market workers in need of refreshment, with the provision that breakfast should be served. The Mercat Cross was officially opened on Friday the 21st of May 1976 at number 25 Bradford St, unfortunately not without trouble. As the pub was closing, a fight occurred between two groups of youngsters because one group was staring at the other. One youngster, John Klein, aged 18, from Summerfield Crescent, Edgbaston, needed 20 stitches after being hit on the head with a pint glass. Vincent Drew, 20 years old, from Dulwich Road, King's Standing, suffered a broken nose. 4 men involved in the brawl were given up to 12-month suspended prison sentences. Earlier in the video, we were wondering about the fate of the animal heads which form part of the old meat market. Was Jenny Irving Smith able to salvage the finely worked terracotta artefacts during her one-woman campaign against the Birmingham City Council? And the answer is yes. One of the rescued animal heads, a bull, was incorporated into the Mercat Cross, which ironically stands almost on the site of the meat market, just a stone's throw away from its original home. In this photo dated August 1976, we can see the conservationist, who now goes by the name Jenny Thomas, proudly posing with a giant bull's head, a precious piece of old Birmingham that she helped preserve with the cooperation of the Mercat Cross. The Mercat Cross served the market traders for over 40 years until the Birmingham City Council decided to redevelop the Smithfield area once again. The wholesale markets precinct moved to Witton in 2018, and with it all the market traders. Consequently, the pub was closed in about 2019. Behind this dark corridor was located Ye Old Moat House Club, accessed at the top of a very steep and narrow wooden staircase. It is believed to be Birmingham's first nightclub. Its owner was Rob Preek, a local personality and a fruit and vegetable wholesaler, which earned him his nickname Banana King. In August 1961, he formed Rob Robin Enterprises Limited to run Ye Old Moat House Club and invested £75,000 into the business. By the way, Robin was the name of one of his 2 sons. Ye Old Moat House Club was officially opened on the 13th of December 1961 at number 342 Bradford Street, with Edmund Hockridge and Joe Church from the Alexandra Theatre as guests of honour. It was an all-night dance club. Members paid an annual subscription of 3 guineas. Non-members had to pay an entrance fee of 1 guinea. 3 years after opening Ye Old Moat House, Rob Preek invested a further £40,000 to provide a high-class gaming club on the 3rd floor of the building. When Rob Preek launched the club, it was one of the first of its kind and filled an important need for the development of Brumbeat in the 1960s. In no time, it became the most popular beat venue in town. Some members came from as far as Leicester, Northampton and Coventry. It was not unusual for clubbers to stay at the Moat House until 8 am and catch early buses home. The club included a restaurant, 2 chefs and 4 kitchen staff were on site to provide meals and refreshments for clubbers. In March 1963, the club was granted a late supper licence for the sale of alcohol. Granted, customers were having a meal with it. The restaurant rapidly deteriorated, and soon there was hardly any food in the kitchen because the truth is, people went there to get drunk. On the 7th of October 1964, a chief inspector made the first of a series of visits to the club to make sure it complied with the licensing requirements. According to the Licensing Act 1964, alcohol could be supplied until 2 a.m, provided that members went there for the purpose of dancing and to order a meal. Under the Act, alcohol should only be provided by table service. On each visit, the Chief Inspector found around 500 people were drinking, but there was no evidence of the sale of meals. The police and licensing inspector harassed the Moat house for about 2 years until eventually they raided the club. At around 1 a.m. on Sunday, the 2nd of October 1966, the police raided the Moat house as well as its sister club, the Midnight City, which was located underneath the Moat house and opened 2 weeks prior to the raid. The Midnight City was a 24-hour club for teenagers, offering round-the-clock entertainment, catering and shopping facilities. In the early hours of the morning, members were able to buy Carnaby Street fashion and offbeat clothes in the 2 boutiques for men and women. The club, which was run by Rob Prick's 22-year-old son Christopher, also had a coffee bar and a hair salon. Around 500 youngsters were told to leave both clubs by the police without any explanation. The Moat House and the Midnight City boasted 1,000 members between the 2 of them. Rob Prick and his son Chris were both prosecuted under the Licensing Act 1964 and were fined a total of £105 between the 2 of them. And if that was not enough, their late night licence was revoked. The reason why the situation was dragged for 2 years before the police decided to raid the club was because, ironically, a large number of police officers were members and the facilities there were used for the City Police rugby team after the games. The Moat House and the Midnight City reopened on Friday, the 7th of October 1966, but the bars could only serve alcohol until 10:30 p.m, which didn't really go well for the clubbers. Eventually, both clubs were closed down on Thursday, the 13th of October, because members were not interested in a nightclub that had a curfew on alcohol consumption. Rob Prick's only crime was to be ahead of his time. The Moat House was too modern for the era that saw clubs as an extension of a restaurant. Now, clubs don't sell food past 9 p.m and provide mostly music and lots of alcohol.